Section 3.2 is on converting measurements. So we'll look at converting between systems and within systems. Within systems isn't quite as hard, but between systems, for instance, going from metric to imperial or imperial to metric is a little more difficult. So metric, the root word is meter, so we know that it's going to be measurements like centimeter, meter, kilometer. Imperial is kind of the other one. That's the one we use for measuring in a house, for instance, or building supplies. So we use inches, feet, yards, miles. They also use these typically in the United States. So the first thing I want to do is I want to look at converting the following measurements, and I'm going to go from either metric to imperial or imperial to metric, depending on what the question asks for. Part A asks to convert 81 meters into feet. First thing you want to do is you want to look at your data sheets. Always have these handy. And I look for the conversion from meters and feet. Well, I see feet here. Oh, and then meters. So it's the second one or third one down here. I have 1 foot equals that means approximately 0.305 meters. The way I'm going to show how to do this is I'm going to set up ratios and then use cross multiplication, because I think then there's no guesswork as to whether you multiply or divide. I mean, you could go right ahead and divide by a 0.305, but it might not be clear that you divide by 0.305. Maybe some of you might think, well, why don't I multiply? So let's check. So I know that 1 foot is equal to approximately 0.305 meters. So I'm going to set up the ratio 1 foot per 0.305 meters. Notice I have feet on top and meters on the bottom. I'm going to put an equals sign and I'm going to put feet on top over meters. So I have 81 meters into feet. I don't know how many feet there are, so we'll just call it x. So x feet on top, and I know that I have 81 meters on the bottom. Next thing I'm going to do is cross multiply. So when I cross multiply, I get 1 times 81, which is 81 meters. Well, actually, the units don't really make much sense yet. They'll make more sense when we divide, but don't worry about that. 81, which is equal to 0.305 times x. Now I have to solve for x. I know this is a little bit of algebra, but this is pretty much as hard as they get. To know what you do to solve for x, x is being multiplied by 0.305. X is being multiplied. So at this stage, we are going to divide, because division is the opposite operation of multiplication. We always think in terms of opposites. So I get my calculator, I take 81, and I divide by 0.305, and I get 265.57. And that is my value for x. Now, always look at your answer. I mean, if you just did it originally and you multiplied, so say you accidentally did this. You did 81 and you times by 0.305, and you get at your calculator and you go 81 times 0.305, and that's equal to 24.7. And you say, there you go, that's my answer, 24.7 feet. Look at it compared to the original one. First of all, you started off with 81 meters, and you're saying that 81 meters is equivalent to 24.7 feet. Well, I know and you know that a meter is actually larger than a foot. So in 1 meter, there's actually a little over 3 feet. So I know that if I'm converting this to feet, there's going to be way more feet, because it takes more feet to get to 81 meters. It's going to take way more. And we saw that it actually takes 265 feet to get to 81 meters. So if you do it the quick method, which would be this way, the quick method, basically either you multiply or divide. And you should know whether you multiply or divide by your answer, first of all. Does it make sense? So I do 81, I just divide by 0.305, and it is equal to the same thing, because that's exactly what I did there, right? 265.57. It's just the way the data sheets are set up. If I had the meter conversion, like if I had 1 meter equals so many feet, then I would then I would multiply. But it's not set up like that, it's set up differently. Okay, let's keep going here. I'm going to keep with the same method because I think it's pretty easy. The first one I had to go through all the detail. So let's look at the second one. This time I'm going from meters to yards. So let's see. Oh, 1 yard is equal to 0.915 meters. So I set up my little conversion. 1 yard is 0.915 meters, equal to, my yards are on top, my meters are on bottom. So my yards, oh, I don't know, so let's call that x. 21.75 meters goes on the bottom. And then I do my cross multiplication. Sorry, at the top I should have shown that I was cross multiplying as well. So 1 times 21.75 is just 21.75 is equal to, and then x times 0.915, x, solve for x. All these that are being multiplied, you're always going to divide them. So that makes, it kind of takes all the guesswork out, because I know it's multiplied. Opposite operation is division. So then again, I just take my calculator. I have 21.75 divided by 0.915 is equal to 23.77, which is equal to x, and that should be in yards. Sorry, I should have put the units on the first one too. This one should be in feet. So I have 23.77 yards. Does that make sense? Well, it's pretty close to 21.75 meters. It's actually a little bigger, which it should be, because a yard is a little smaller than a meter. A yard is exactly 3 feet. A meter is more than 3 feet. So it's going to take more yards to get to the same amount of meters. It's going to take more yards to get to 21.75 meters because a yard is a little bit smaller. Good. Okay, let's keep going. Here I have 3 foot 11 inches. That means feet, and that means inches, into centimeters. First thing you want to do is you want to convert completely to either feet or inches. Let's do inches. Let's convert everything to inches. So how many inches are in a foot? Well, we know there's 12, right? So in 3 feet times 12, you'd have 36 inches. And then plus I have 11 inches there. So that leaves me with 47 inches total. Okay, see how I did that? So 3 feet was 36 inches. Plus the 11 inches I had here, which equals my 47. Okay. Similarly, if I was going from 47 inches, I would look at 47. I would divide it by 12, and I get this 3.99.91666 something. So I know there's 3 feet, and then if I take my 3 feet out of how many inches I have, I know there's 3 feet is 36 inches, okay, and then I have to get to 47. So how many would be left over? I have 36 inches, and I have 47 inches. So I've already taken up 36 inches by my 3 feet. And then what I have left over, you could even just subtract them, is 11 inches. So that's what you would put, 3 feet, 11 inches to go the other way. And there's a question like that in your homework of how to convert inches just to feet, or feet to inches and feet. So I'm going to convert these into centimeters. So I look at my data sheets and I look for inches and centimeters. Right here at the top is 2.54. So I know 1 inch per 2.54. So I'm going to set up the same way. So 1 inch per 2.54 centimeters is equal to, I'm converting to centimeters, so I don't know, but I have 47 inches on top, and my unknown value is centimeters, which is on the bottom. Remember, we keep inches on top, centimeters on the bottom, or whatever it happens to be. So again, I cross multiply. I get 1 times x this time, and I get the 2.54 times 47. Notice how it's a little bit different than last time. So 1x is equal to, and I have 47 times 2.54, which is 119.38. Notice my value in front of x is just a 1. So if I divide it by 1, this value doesn't change. So you actually don't need to put the 1, because 1 times x is just x. And I'm left with my value in centimeters. That one was a lot easier. And I just figured out the question by multiplying, right? So I could have just taken a 47 and multiply by 2.54 right away. That would be the quick method, right? If you understand how the data sheets work and you can just do either multiplication or division, then it can be a little quicker. All right, last one here on the page, 6 foot 4 inches into meters. So I looked for inches to meters. Well, I don't see inches to meters. I see feet to meters though. So probably going to convert this thing to feet this time instead of to inches. So in order to convert to feet, when it's 6 foot 4 inches, the 4 inches needs to be converted to a decimal, because I know it's going to be 6 point something. To figure out the point something, I take the inches and I divide by 12. I take the inches that are left over and I divide by 12. So I have 4 divided by 12 is 0.333. So I have 6.333. I would round off to 3 because the next one over is a 3. So I have 6.333 feet. Again, to convert that, I took my inches that were kind of left over, divided by 12, and converted it to a decimal. And you can even check. You can do 0.333 times 12 is going to be about 4. Yep, okay, so that's right. Okay, now I'm converting my feet to meters. So feet to meters is the 0.305 for 1 foot. So I have 1 foot per 0.305 meters is equal to 6. Okay, so this is my feet. So my feet are on top, remember? So I have 6.333 per, and I don't know how many meters, so I'm going to say x meters. So again, I cross multiply, and I get 1 times x again. Remember, 1 times x is just x, so we can just put x is equal to, and then I multiply those two values, so I have 6.333 times 0.305, which is about 1.93. And that is into meters. And I'm done, because I don't have to divide anything. And again, if you wanted to do the quick method, I could have just gone here and multiplied this value by my 0.305. And again, you kind of know that because we're going from feet to meters, there's going to be less of them. So if I'm multiplying by a decimal like 0.305, which is small, like a fraction, that's what I want to do. If I'm dividing by a fraction, my number is actually going to get bigger. If I'm dividing by a decimal, like a small decimal, my number will get bigger. If I multiply by my decimal, my number will get smaller. So that should tell you too. And again, if you divided by this value, you'd get a larger number. And you know that's wrong because there's got to be fewer meters, right? Because a meter is larger form of measurement. All right. Next example I want to go through is a type of word problem or a type of diagram. So area is length times width, and I want to calculate the area in square kilometers. Well, if I look at my question, this is in miles. First thing I need to do is convert these to kilometers. So I look at my data sheets. I look for miles and kilometers. Oh, right here. 1 mile is 1.6 kilometers. So I guess we can do the same thing. Set up 1 mile is 1.6 kms. And I have each one of these things, so I'm going to have to do 2 conversions. I recommend doing it this way. So I have 2.3 miles on top over, I don't know how many kilometers, so I'm going to say x because I'm converting it to kilometers. So I go down like this, cross multiply. So I get 1 times x again, which is really easy, just x, which is equal to 2.3 times 1.6, which is 3.68. If you noticed, what I did was I basically just ended up multiplying by 1.6. Multiplying by 1.6. Because I know that there's going to be more kilometers in a mile, because a mile is a larger form of measurement, it's going to take more kilometers to equal the same amount of miles. So I basically just can take 6.1, multiply it by my 1.6, and I get my 9.76. So we'll call that. So now I've converted each one of these. 2.3 is now 3.68 kilometers, and 6.1 is now 9.76 kilometers. They equal exactly the same amount, just a different form of measurement, right? Now to find area, I just multiply the two, right? So area is just equal to 9.76 times 3.68. So I have 9.76 times 3.68, which is 35.92. And my form of measurement is kilometers squared because I'm dealing with area. And that's it. I recommend converting the forms of measurement first before you do the area. If you do the area first, like if you took 6.1 times 2.3, you get 14.03, and that's miles squared. But I have to convert to kilometers squared. And I know that when I was doing each separate conversion, I was multiplying by 1.6, or timesing by 1.6. But if you're going from squared to squared, you actually have to multiply by 1.6 twice, because there's a squared there and a squared. And because a square has two sides, you have to multiply by 1.6 twice. Just like we multiplied each dimension by 1.6, we have to do the same thing with the area. So I take 14.03 times 1.6 times 1.6. It gets me to 35.92. The same answer. It's just a little quicker. So that would be like the quick method, right? You can do it. You don't have to do each dimension, but it might make a little more sense to you, or it might make more sense to you to do it that way. It doesn't matter. I don't mind, as long as you understand. And if you're unsure whether to multiply or divide, might be good to set up an equation first. All right, last question I'm going to go through. So you're installing tiles that measure 5 inches by 5 inches into a room with dimensions of 3 feet by 6 feet. So you want to have each thing in the same form of measurement, and then it says the tiles cost $4.15 a tile, and what's the cost? First of all, we need to figure out how many tiles it takes to fill up in this room. So I have this room. Good idea to draw a picture. I always draw pictures to help me out. So I have a 3-foot room by a 6-foot room, and each of my tiles is 5 inches by 5 inches. Now, what I want to do probably is convert the feet to inches, because then it's easier to divide. And I want to be dealing with areas, because that will help me. And you can see right away, well, if I figure out what the area of this is, divide by the area of each little tiny tile, then I can figure out how many tiles there are, and then just multiply by my cost. That's the goal. So what I do, how do I convert feet to inches? This time we don't really need to look on your sheet. You should know that there's 12 inches in each feet. So I multiply by 12. I get 36. And that's now in inches. I multiply by 12. I get 72. And that is now in inches. So I have my form of measurement in inches. How do I find the area of the entire thing? I do 36 times 72, right? Length times width. So 36 times 72. So I get 2,592. Remember, that's in inches squared. Inches squared. And then my little blocks here, each one is going to be 5 by 5, which is 25 inches squared. So I have a total room area of 2,592, and each little tile is 25 inches squared. So what do I do now? Well, I want to figure out the total area that it's going to take to fill this whole thing up with tiles. So I have 2,592. I divide by my 25 to figure out it's going to take 103.68. That's how many tiles it's going to take. Now, it's $4.15 a tile, so how many tiles am I actually going to need to buy? Well, I'm going to have to cut one. So that means I'm going to have to actually buy 104 tiles. So just make sure you understand that. And then what's the cost of that? Okay, well, I have 104 tiles times my $4, and 15 cents a tile to figure out the total cost. So I have 104 times $4 and 15 cents a tile, which is $431.60. I know there's a 0.6, but if there's a 0.6 and you're dealing with money, please add a 0, because that makes more sense in terms of money. So you have 104 tiles, which is going to cost you $431.60 to cover the entire area. Hopefully that makes sense. If you get stuck, go back to the beginning of the video and watch through it again.